Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling Magic Monday. What's Magic Monday all about? It's creating the magic. It's finding that spark that is going to inspire you during the week, not only for that day, but for the whole week. It's that little spark. Like today, my creativity ran amok. We started our wake-up call this morning with doing a persona. And I love the Monday morning calls, because we get to do a persona and then we all come together and brainstorm about different ideas and how things can be used, different marketing ideas that different businesses can use utilizing a direct mail tool. And it was just, it was actually incredible. This morning's one was really good. We had a lot of participation, a lot of really great ideas that I don't know about anybody else there, but my imagination got sparked. My creativity got inspired. And I went out and I started writing down ideas for creating some different types of cards and things. And have this really cool card I'm working on right now, although looking at it and I'm thinking, I think it's a little too much of that. But if I did this, this, and this, it could turn out a lot better. But, you know, the inspiration was inspired and the creativity started running like crazy. And but I had to focus on tasks that I had to get done today. And then I let it run a little crazy later on. So the ideas are still flowing. The pen's been going crazy all day. So we'll get some more cards created, some more ideas put in there. Yeah, it's just been a wild, wild day. As far as creativity goes. And then I was thinking about the Before the Dirt Nap Adventures, and I was thinking, how can I inspire people with that? And I thought, oh, what was that book? And there was a bucket list book that I got, like 1,000 different places you can go. And I like the way that this one is laid out, because each chapter is, it goes along the latitude. It goes from different latitude groupings. So you start at the top at 0 to 60, 60 to 90, I think it is. But you start coming, no, hang on, that's the wrong way around. Hang on. I gotta go back and have a look. But this book, I absolutely love this book. So chapter 1 is from 90 degrees north to 60 degrees north. Chapter 2 is 60 degrees north to 45 degrees north. And so it keeps going down the different latitudes as you go from the North Pole down to the South Pole, and it's got everywhere in between. And so depending which band it's in, like I know New Zealand is completely in chapter 8 because it fits nice and it's nice and centralized there, from 30 degrees south to 90 degrees south. Australia's split in 3 actually, because it's got some in chapter 6, some in main body in chapter 7, another main area in chapter 7 as well, and just a little bit in chapter 6. So 6, 7, and 8 is what Australia goes through. And of course the States goes through a lot. But it's actually quite cool. I mean, they talk about all sorts of different things that you can go, and you go through like the Northern Hemisphere. Let's go here. And I was thinking about this. I remember something that my mum told me years ago. And I was reading this one. It was like, soar over the wilderness of the North Pole. And the planned trips run June and July, latitude 90 degrees, north longitude is 0. So long goes up and down, and latitude goes across because it's laying. Latitude lays down. And it says the polar route, I don't know if I can make this any bigger. The polar route, or Santa's shortcut, has been open to many long-haul twin jet flights since 2011. So technically you could be flying over the North Pole as you head off on your summer holiday. To get closer to the top of the world, though, the only place on Earth where you can look only south. So think about that. The North Pole is the only place on Earth where you can only look south. Isn't that the coolest sentence to read? That the only place on Earth where you can only look south. And then I thought about it. I thought, well, that would be the reverse as well. If you're at the South Pole, the only place you could look is north. And I remember my mum telling me years ago, you know, the North Pole and the South Pole are finite. You know, you can reach the North Pole, you can reach the South Pole. East and West has no beginning and has no end. If you think about it, if you're going east, you can keep going east as much as you want, and you're never going to get to west unless you turn around and start going back the other way. but there is no beginning and end to east and west, but north and south has a definite start and end place. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that sentence there about to get close to the top of the world, though, the only place on earth where you can only look south, you need to take an icebreaker ship, and then a helicopter or a tethered hot air balloon. And the reverse would be true too. If you're at the South Pole, the only place you can look is north. So I thought that was kind of cool. But this has lots of different things in there based on which section you're looking at. You can explore whalebone Stonehenge. Did you even know one existed? It's in Siberia and Russia. And it talks about, where you can find these things, the best places to go to these different times and stuff. It's the bucket list book, and it is in the description below we've got it under Before the Dirt Nap Adventures Ideas. I think it's under there in the description, and there's a link that'll take you right to the book. But yeah, they've got beautiful colored photographs in this book. Some of the photographs are just amazing. And I have been through this book many, many times, looking at different things that I could do, that I would like to do, definitely want to do, maybe not really interested in that one. But there's 1,000 ideas in there. Even things like, visiting Goldeneye and being in, which is the name of the place that Ian Fleming owned in Jamaica. Visiting Goldeneye and seeing, a place that he was inspired. Going up into England and going to the pub there where he actually sat and wrote some of his James Bond novels. So, there's all sorts of different things that you can do. There's even one in there, it's like, write a journal. I always remember that one. Write your story. Everybody has a story to tell. It could be 100 years from now, and you've got your great, maybe even 3 great grandchildren who are sitting there. They're reading your journal of what it was like to live in this time and place. And that's part of, with genealogy, that's part of the work that we do, is we are filling in the gaps. Yes, we can do the facts. This is the name of the person. This is when and where they were born. This is when and where they got married and who they got married to. This is when and when they died. These are the number of children that they had and when and where they had their children. They were on these census reports. They lived in these places at this time. And, you can go through it and you can get the facts. But the cool part about genealogy is getting in there and getting the stories. And if you can find journals that have been left behind by family members and things, oh my gosh, those are such a gold mine of information. Even if it's just their planner. We call them diaries in New Zealand. So diaries, your journals, your planners, your date books. Even those can hold valuable information as well. And people go, why didn't you throw this away? There's nothing. I said, there is stuff in there. And I want to leave it for generation. Somebody else may decide and come along with them and go, we don't need that, and toss it. I ain't going to do that. It's like me with greeting cards. I love greeting cards. My mother created a scrapbook for each of us kids when we were born, and it had our birth announcements in there. It had the little label that went on the end of the crib that when we were in the hospital, and it had all of these cards of people saying, congratulations on your new baby, and that sort of thing. And I've actually got my scrapbook. It's in storage right now, but I have my scrapbook, and she put in there all the birth announcements, the congratulations on the birth cards, then every birthday card I ever received up until I think it was age 11 or 12, and then she stopped putting them in there. But I still have every single card that I have been given in my entire life for birthdays, anniversaries. I still have them all. I have not thrown any. The only time I throw out a greeting card is if it's pure marketing. It's not even personalized. It's just straight direct marketing piece. Those are the only times I will throw out any greeting cards, but I keep greeting cards. I have probably thousands of them. I have boxes of them. For a while there, I was also collecting I love to collect postcards as well. When I go different places, there's 2 things that I purchase when I'm visiting a new place, although I haven't done that on the road trip, probably because I don't have any metal in here I can put the magnets on. But when we were cruising, when Brad and I were traveling together, we would always get at least 1 fridge magnet and 1 or 2 postcards of the areas that we visited. And I always had, when we went on a cruise, one of my stops was into the the cruise shop there on board, the like general store area, and they would have magnets of the ship. And I'd always get one of those. And I actually had on my filing cabinet in order all of the ships and even if I'd been on some ships twice, there was 2 magnets there, 2 different ones. And there was all of the ships that I had been on, and I still have all my room keys as well, except for the Armour Waterways one, because they give you the room key. You have to give it back to them before you leave the ship in order to get your passport back. So they hang on to your passport until they get your room key back. So that's the only ship I don't have a room key for. All the other ships, they're all personalized with my name on it. So I get to keep those, the name of the ship, the date of sailing, how many nights we're on that cruise ship for, so just the basic information, and they've become a keepsake as well. And then the postcards, I remember when we were in Milk, and I wasn't getting off the ship that day. I'd been sick with a 24-hour stomach flu the day before, and this was my first day being back up and around. I didn't want to do anything. And so we met 2 other couples while we'd been on the ship. One of them was my birthday twin, and she was on there. We both celebrate our birthdays the same day, different years, but same day. And her husband was off doing the Salzburg bus trip, which is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go down Salzburg because I'm a huge Sound of Music fan, and I wanted to go to that area and absorb that. So her husband was off on that trip, and Sue's husband was in their cabin sick. He had the 24-hour stomach flu. And so Mo, Sue, and Brad went off to go and have a look, to go explore Milk, have a look at the big abbey that's there. And they were the ones that reminded him that he had to come back with his magnet. He had to come back with the magnet and the postcards for me. So I said to him, can you please bring me back my magnet and postcards? They're like, okay. So they actually also, not only did they remind him, but they helped him choose ones to bring back as well. So, because they're just easy souvenirs to bring back. I mean, a fridge magnet, they're tiny little things. And postcards, they take up next to no room. So they're not, that was my little souvenirs that I would always bring back on my trips with me. And I suddenly thought, driving, I haven't done that. I haven't gone looking for postcards and magnets. But then I don't have a metal fridge. My fridge is covered in, I don't even have any of it around, in this veneer stuff. So there's no metal on my doors or anything. So I've got to figure out something else. But it's sort of like, I didn't even go getting postcards from those places when we were busy tripping around. So I thought, yeah, well, I guess I got to go back to all those places so I can get my postcards. Yeah, we'll see about that one. But the other thing I can do is, because I have pictures from those places, I can go and create my own postcards and send them to me and put on there the dates that I was there. Yes, the postmark will be a few years later, but I can still go back and I can pull those photographs together and turn them into postcards and send them to myself to say, hey, we've, maybe might have been with mum and dad, or it might have just been myself, or it might have been myself and Zephy. We visited here. On these days, had a blast, and just a little couple of points about the town, about the places that we visited and things that I can do, because I also have photos of sparkles in every campground we stayed in as well. I always took a picture of Sparkles once she was all set up in her little campsite. So I have all those photographs too. So that's something that you can do. But it's also too, you can also send those while you're out. Take your own photographs and create postcards and send them to yourself, send them to family, send them to friends. It's done, just like that. But anyway, so there's some ideas for you for helping to tell your story. You can tell your story through postcards. And there's really cool. I have to see if I can find them again. But there's really cool photo albums that you can get that are actually designed for postcards. And then they have a little piece down the side that you can actually write on as well. But we got to see if you can see through from the other side, so you can see the front and the back of the postcards. Because I have some that go back, and I love collecting postcards. So if I happen to go into an antique store or a thrift store or something, I'll be looking for the postcards. People sell their postcards. I know, it's crazy. I know. But some of the areas where I'm doing genealogy research, that's a really cool place to go and hang out, is go into an antique store and a thrift store and see if you can find any postcards that may have been for the person that you're looking for or somebody within their family. Now, those are really cool postcards to get. I haven't found any yet, but I'm always hopeful when I go searching for things like that. But, finding the stories of places and if you can't find anything on your direct family in journals and newspapers and letters and that sort of stuff, look at news reports that were going on in that area at the time where they lived. Look for their neighbors. Do they have any journals or stuff that's been published? And you can actually use their stories to help fill in what life was like during that time with your ancestors. And you never know. In some book somewhere, you may have an ancestor that's mentioned through the fact that they worked together, they lived next door to each other, they were good friends. It's all sorts of different stories that will come out in journals and letters and things like that. And that's why I love these flower letters too, because that gives you some idea of things that were happening in this case in World War II, leading up to and beyond Normandy, the invasion of Normandy. So there's that. And then I have the other series that I'm going to do next, which is the Wild West one, where you have the mail order bride that goes out to the West to get married and her life out there. So I'm curious to read that one too. But these are letters that are fiction, but also based on fact. So you get to learn what life was like at the time. And they've done a pretty good job with these. So I'm going to go and because this is letter number 23, which means I'll be getting letter number 24 within a couple of weeks, and then I'm done with that series. So I need to get the other one set up and running so I can get the next series, because they're really good series. But look for things like that can help you fill in that time. Oh, the Wild West. Well, we had relatives that were out in that area, and they give you all the thing, and maybe, who knows? But this way, you can learn a little bit more about that history and that place and time and things like that. So, and then you get to visit places like Tombstone in Arizona. Now, that was a cool place to visit. It was October of 2019. I spent 6 weeks here in Arizona, and I spent 3 weeks, I think it was, in Tucson. I don't know. I was up here in Phoenix, and I rented a car up here, and I drove out to Suspicious Mountain. There's a ghost town out there. Really cool place to visit. Lots of artisans and things. And there was a place called the Apothecary, and there was a woman who created everything in her store by hand with essential oils, and her cakes of soap really did look like slabs of fudge. They were so good, and they smelled yummy. But she says, no, they're definitely soap, not fudge. And she even has a soap of the month club. So there's all that sort of thing as well. And then there was, so that was the ghost town. Went down to spent a day down in Tombstone, and had a lot of fun down there. And that's where I got my Stetson called Gus. It's actually the Stetsons have names, and the names are for the type of crown that they have. And a Gus crown is lower at the front and higher at the back. And according to my hat fitter, Pamela, I was totally screwed. Pamela is also my mother's name. And Gus, of course, being my dog that I had before I got Zeffy. And we had Gus 12 and a half years before he passed. He went 18 days before Brad did. So we had this, and so I thought, it's a Gus hat. I'm being sold to it by Pamela. I'm totally screwed. But I love my Stetson. And it's not a hat, it's a Stetson. Got my hand slapped a couple of times on that one. And she was having me try on all these other ones. And I looked at the Gus and I said, well, what about that one? She says, you want to try on a Gus? And I'm like, yeah, why? She says, it's very rare for women to be able to wear hats, to wear a Gus. And I'm like, really? She says, yeah. I said, can I try it anyway? She's like, okay. So she found my size, put it on, and she's like, oh my gosh. She said, that looks amazing on you. And there was another one that I liked. I think it was called the Gambler. It was like a flat top. She says, that looks amazing on you. She says, it is very, very, very rare for a woman to be able to wear a Gus. And she says, and you've got one of those heads that can wear any hat. And I'm like, crap. And she goes, what's the matter? I said, my mother's always been telling me I've got a head for hats. And she goes, well, your mother's right. And I'm like, darn it. But all done in good jest. And so there was another couple, and I had this red gambler hat, which I thought looked really cool as well on me. And I was like, yeah, I could get both, but I don't want to get both. I only want to get one. And so I went out, and this couple walked into the store. And so rather than going to the other salesperson, would just tell you anything you want to hear. So I don't know if they worked on commission or not. I went up to this couple and I said, excuse me. I said, I'm sorry to interrupt, but may I ask your opinion on something? I said, I've got these two Stetson. I've got the Stetson here and this other hat here, and I don't know which one to get. And so I put the red one on, and the guy goes, well, that looks really good. And then I put the Gus on, and he looks and goes, that looks, he says, yep. And he looks at me and he goes, that red one, that's for Christmas. That one there, and it's a black Stetson, he says, that's everyday wear. I went, thank you very much. And I already had an idea which one I was going to get anyway. I just wanted confirmation from somebody else. And so that's how I ended up with my Stetson called Gus. And it even has a little tag inside that says Gus. So if anybody looks at me and goes, yeah, right, that's called a Gus. It's sewn into the band on the inside of the hat, of the inside of the Stetson. Bad girl. So, it's stories like that that you can leave to tell you, just fun stories. And walking around Tombstone was awesome. I got this ticket, which got me in to see the showdown at the OK Corral. Totally learned a whole new story about that as well, because I'd only ever seen the movie OK, the gunfight at OK Corral or whatever it was. It was made back in like the 50s, I think, 50s or 60s. And yeah, it's very different. The real life stuff was very different to what, yes, they're the same characters, but how the actual gunfight went down was very different to what was portrayed in the movie. And they actually had their anyway, so this ticket that I got gets you into the show, the gunfight at the OK Corral, which they replicate. Also gets you to see all the museum area of that. Then you get to go in and see the pictogram of the history of Tombstone, which was really cool. That was awesome. And you also, with your ticket, you got another ticket which you would take down to the newspaper place and hand that to them, and you got a free copy of the newspaper that was printed the next morning after the fight of the OK Corral the day before, and it gave you all the background. It gives you all the background story and everything. So you actually get a copy of the actual newspaper with all the articles and everything in there about this gunfight at the OK Corral, because it was a big deal. So it was really cool walking around this place. And some places were set up as a museum/store. Some places were just straight out stores. After I got my Stetson, I wore it. Felt a little more comfortable. I had my jeans on, had my Stetson on. So I had sneakers and just a t-shirt. So still felt a little underdressed. But I went into this restaurant and sat down and had a great lunch, and then went walking around again and doing some more things. And was going to go down to that other place, which wasn't far from Tombstone, but I ran out of time that day. So Benson, I think it was. I also ran out of time to go up to the cemetery where you could go and visit all the headstones and everything, the Tombstone Cemetery. So then I drove back to Tucson, and on the way back, they actually have a mobile trying to think of the name, like a passport control, immigration, customs and immigration area as well. And they had it near this road which goes directly down to Mexico, and so you're coming back. And so I got stuck in traffic. There were 3 cars in front of me, and they were taking their time. The guys were looking in the back with flashlights, and it's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon in October, and they're looking in the back with flashlights and everything else, and checking under the cars and everything. Some of them, they had them pop their trunks and had a look in there, and then let them go through. And of course, I'm just like, I'll just be me. And so as I pull up, I had my windows down, because my husband had always taught me, whenever you go through anything like this, always put your windows down. So I had all my windows down so they could very easily see into the vehicle. And as I drive up there, I said to the customs officer, I said, good afternoon, sir. And he goes, well, good afternoon, ma'am. He says, how are you doing? I says, super fantastic and sparkling, thank you. How are you? And he stops and he takes a step back and he goes, wow. He says, nobody's ever given me that answer before. I says, I know. And it took him back, and he goes, well, I'm the same. I said, excellent. And he says, you can carry on through. And as I'm driving away, my windows are still down, and I can hear, that's the best answer ever. These guys all talking about it. There's a little mobile setup. Everything was on wheels, so they could just wheel it off the road if they needed to. So I knew that they were there because I passed them on the way down to Tombstone. So got to do that. Another day I got to go to the Prima Air and Space Museum. That was awesome. That was amazing. The size of some of those planes, it's like, how the hell do they even get off the ground? Seriously, there are some huge planes there, and it really is defying gravity. It's sort of like there's got to be some magic in there somewhere along the way, and it's all in the aerodynamics and the engines and everything else that help these humongous big planes, fully loaded, get off the ground and fly. And it's just wild. We got to see some really cool fighter planes as well. Actually got on the little tour that went around. They had this big long golf cart which had things added onto seating added onto it, trailers and all that. And I was up on the front one and videotaped the whole trek all the way around. That was a really cool day there as well. But just had a blast, just going and doing things. And how the hell did I get on? Okay, I have definitely waffled on long enough. I have a puppy who is looking for her 8 p.m. treats, and it's 8:16, so I better get going to give her treats. Oh, she's up in her bed watching me. She's got her head on the edge of the bed just staring at me. Like, she's telepathically sending to me that she wants her treats, so I better go give them to her. But anyway, write down your stories. That's the thing of today. Is go and write down your stories. Whatever stories, things about growing up, things, adventures you have been on, trips you have been on. Write down what you remember about them. And what's interesting is that as you start talking about them and writing about them, is other experiences will pop into your head and say, oh yeah, that one. And so you write down a few keywords on that one so you can come back to that later. It's like I'm getting ready to do my presentation on June 2nd and June 15th for the polka dots and for the international group. And I did a dry run on Friday through the thing, and I had my notes there. But afterwards I said, oh, I totally forgot to mention this. And they go, oh, that's important. You got to put it in there. And I'm like, what do I cut out? Because I was at 22 minutes and I'm meant to be at 20. So I had to cut 2 minutes out of somewhere. And they want me to add this other very vital information. And I'm like, and then I was starting to remember other things that are coming back as well. And it's sort of like, ooh, I'm going to be in big trouble come the 2nd and the 15th. I will get it done. I will get it done. I will get an awesome 20-minute presentation out. And the words that need to be said will be what comes out of my mouth. So I'm not too worried about it. But anyway, I'm out of here. Go have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow for Tune Up Tuesday. Hey, Conera.